Welcome to Chronicles of Manga, Manhwa, and Manhwa. Today, we will explore the story of a man who gains the unique ability to copy other people's talents in a world filled with martial arts and monsters. We will witness his journey to become stronger. So, let's begin. At the beginning of the story, a gigantic monster appeared out of nowhere and began to destroy everything. The people in the city were terrified to see this monster, and they all ran for their lives. While the people were fleeing, a young boy stood in the middle of the street, staring at the monster. As he looked at it, he felt an odd sensation in his face. When he looked down, he noticed there was electric energy in his hand. The boy was struck by a mystical power, began to scream in pain, and fell into an unknown abyss. The scene shifts, and we see a mysterious energy entering our protagonist's brain. The boy wakes up immediately after the energy touches his head. He realizes that he has awakened his talent, but he does not understand why he has such unique vision. He wonders if he is hallucinating because of his awakening. 100 years ago, countless spatial rifts opened up above Earth, and fierce dimensional beasts invaded the planet, threatening humanity's survival. However, the dimensional energy also stimulated humanity's talents. A small number of humans awakened talents, leading to the era of talents. After the boy woke up, his sister came to check on him. She asked him if he had finished awakening his talent. When the boy heard this, he picked up a rock that had a rune on it. The rock told him that the talent he had awakened was a weak tier talent. Disappointed, he knew that a weak tier talent would not be useful to him. He believed that he was doomed for the rest of his life. He threw the rock on the floor and wondered how he would protect his sister if he could not become a martial warrior. His sister barged into his room and asked him how his talent evaluation went, looking curious. The boy smiled and told his sister that his talent was excellent. She was very happy to hear this. With a smile on his face, he told her that he would become a powerful martial warrior and protect her. His sister jumped up in happiness, saying that her big brother was the best. She then told him to come into the living room because she had made his favorite dish to celebrate his awakening. While she was leaving his room, a status window appeared in front of him. The status window displayed his sister's name, Yu, her cultivation talent which was low tier, and her frost talent which was low tier and unawakened. The boy was surprised to see the status window and did not understand why it appeared before him. He reached out to touch the status window, and immediately it displayed his information. His name was Ye Tian, and his cultivation talent was weak tier. Ye Tian was shocked to see his own information. While he was staring at the status window, his sister held his hand and told him to come eat before the food got cold. The moment Yu touched her brother's hand, another status window appeared in front of him. This window indicated that her cultivation talent and frost talent could be copied. Ye Tian was surprised by this, he did not understand what it meant. The system asked him if he wanted to copy his sister's talents. Ye Tian could not believe that he could copy other people's talents. He immediately realized that this ability could change his situation. Ye Tian went to the dining room to eat with his sister. He knew that his ability to copy talents was powerful, but he did not want to test it on his little sister. He decided not to copy her talent because he knew that her talent was better than his. When she awakened her frost talent, which was extremely rare, she would be able to dominate her opponents. After realizing that he and his sister were blessed with amazing abilities, he looked at a picture of their deceased parents and told them that they could be at ease now. Ye Tian decided to go into the city. When he arrived, he tested his ability. The moment he activated it, the system scanned the area for talents. After activating his ability for a while, Ye Tian realized that the system's effective range for viewing Ye Tian's talent was 3 meters. After searching for a while, he discovered that the talents of the people there were all low tier. He wanted to copy a mid-tier talent, so he decided to go to the academy to check for talents. He knew he could enter the academy since he had also awakened a talent, even though it was weak tier. Ye Tian knew that copying Ye Tian's talent might cause his own talent to change, so he could not apply to an academy that required a talent evaluation. He decided to go to the Linhai Base 5th Academy, knowing that there would be many people there with mid-tier talents. He smiled when he realized that he would be stronger than all the people at this academy thanks to his copying ability. 10 days later, Ye Tian went to the 3rd Martial Stadium of the Linhai Bay 5th Academy. Now a student, he listened as the instructor told the class that if they wanted to become martial warriors, they must first be martial apprentices. To become a martial apprentice, one must first learn the body training technique. The instructor decided to teach them the technique that day, telling the students they would succeed when they managed to create an air vortex in front of their chests. Ye Tian and his fellow students began to practice the technique. After some time, some students started fainting. A chubby boy next to Ye Tian informed the instructor that some students were passing out. The instructor told the boy to ignore the useless pieces of trash and focus on himself. Ye Tian was surprised that he was unable to create an air vortex. He wondered if his talent was too low to help him cultivate. After all the other students fainted, Ye Tian was the only one left practicing. The instructor told them that class was over and revealed that they were the worst students he had ever taught in his life. With a terrifying look on his face, he told the students that they should follow the example of Chen Dong and keep their motivation higher. After class, Ye Tian asked his chubby friend, Zhang Ba, about Chen Dong. Zhang Ba told Ye Tian that Chen Dong was not an ordinary student. He became a martial apprentice in half a month, and the principal took him in as his disciple. Zhang Ba pulled out a paper with a signature on it, telling Ye Tian that once Chen Dong became as strong as their principal, his signature would probably sell for a lot of money. Ye Tian was surprised to see how calculative Zhang Ba was. While walking around the school, Ye Tian noticed that many students were excited to see Chen Dong. The moment Chen Dong came outside, students began to ask for his autograph. Zhang Ba ran toward Chen Dong to get another autograph. Ye Tian smiled when he saw Chen Dong and quickly activated his ability to check his talent. Chen Dong's cultivation talent was mid-tier. After seeing this, Ye Tian decided to greet him with an arrogant look on his face. Chen Dong told the students to calm down. He explained that he came to encourage everyone on behalf of the teachers and asked them to stop asking for his autograph, as he would become a laughingstock if his friends found out. After hearing this, Ye Tian asked him to shake hands with them if they could not get his autograph. Chen Dong accepted the idea and began shaking hands with different students, giving them encouraging words. When it was finally Ye Tian's turn, he smiled sinisterly. The moment he touched Chen Dong's hand, their hands began to glow. Chen Dong told Ye Tian to work hard. After shaking hands with everyone, Chen Dong decided to leave. As he was leaving, Ye Tian smiled because he had gained his talent. That night, Ye Tian went to a cave in the mountains. Inside the cave, he looked at his status window. The status window informed him that he had successfully copied the talent and asked if he would like to fuse it. Ye Tian wondered if the fused talent would be good or bad. He was also curious about the scene he had witnessed before obtaining his talent, as he did not understand what it meant. He decided to stop being curious and fuse the talent. The moment he accepted the fusion, tiny balls of light appeared around him. He began to feel pain in his chest, grabbed it, and started screaming while crawling on the floor. He never expected the talent fusion to be so painful. After a while, the pain began to slowly leave his body, and his cultivation talent changed to mid-tier. After seeing the change, he realized that the pain he endured was worth it. A status window appeared in front of him, indicating that the cooldown time for his talent was 30 days. Ye Tian immediately understood that he could copy a talent every 30 days. He could not believe how overpowered his talent was. Deciding to try the body training technique that the teacher had taught them, he got into pose Ye Tian, and an air vortex appeared in front of his chest. Ye Tian could not believe how easy it was for him to reach this stage. He realized that his talent could make him surpass a martial warrior and become a great martial warrior. 1 month later, a monster entered the city. The scene shifts, and we see a young girl and her father pass by. The girl asked her father what they would have for dinner. Her father said they could eat whatever she wanted as the father and daughter walked further away from Ye Tian. Ye Tian thought about how he had become a martial apprentice and how he still had a long way to go before becoming a martial warrior. The scene shifts, and we see blood in the air as a lamp falls. The monster had bitten the father's head off. The little girl called out for her father while Ye Tian stood frozen in fear. The people on the street began to run when they saw the giant wolf. Ye Tian was very surprised to see a monster for the first time. The monster gritted its teeth and rushed to attack the little girl. Ye Tian noticed this and quickly grabbed the girl, running away. Unfortunately, the monster was very fast, and Ye Tian knew he could not outrun it. Suddenly, a man came from the sky, swinging a huge sword. He aimed to behead the monster, but it was able to dodge his attack. The large man, wearing a red cape, apologized for being late. Ye Tian asked the man for his identity, and he told Ye Tian that people called him Captain Gale Wolf. He informed Ye Tian that he would deal with the Silver Moon Wolf but wanted him to take care of the little girl. Ye Tian immediately accepted the man's offer. Captain Gale Wolf rushed to attack the monster, striking it with his sword, but the creature blocked his attack with its claws. Ye Tian covered the little girl's eyes to prevent her from witnessing the violence. Captain Gale Wolf was surprised by how strong the monster was. He managed to push it back, but the monster rushed to attack him again. Gale Wolf already knew that the Silver Moon Wolf was a very fast creature, but he never expected it to dodge his attacks. Fortunately for Captain Gale Wolf, his teammates arrived to help him. When the Silver Moon Wolf saw Gale Wolf's teammates, it tried to run away. Gale Wolf's teammates noticed this and signaled their captain. The Silver Moon Wolf ran toward Captain Gale Wolf, and thanks to this, Gale Wolf was able to trap and stab the monster. One of his teammates asked if the monster was dead. Gale Wolf was about to reply when he noticed something odd about the creature. The monster turned red and began to scream. Gale Wolf warned his teammates that the monster was going into blood-burst mode, so they all needed to be careful. When his teammates heard this, they moved away from the monster. As the monster entered blood-burst mode, it began to flee. Ye Tian informed Gale Wolf that the monster was getting away. Gale Wolf smiled and told Ye Tian not to worry. As the monster reached the top of a building, it saw an archer who told it that she had been waiting for it. The archer released her arrow, hitting the Silver Moon Wolf in the midair. The wolf fell in front of Ye Tian and Captain Gale Wolf. Gale Wolf taunted the monster, saying it was still too weak to fight against his team. While the team discussed among themselves, Ye Tian noticed something on top of the monster's corpse. The system displayed the monster's blood talent, which was low tier, and its speed talent, which was novice tier. Ye Tian was surprised to see the monster's talents. As he stared at the creature, he noticed that it was slowly getting back up. Gale Wolf and his team were still talking among themselves when the monster struggled to rise. When Gale Wolf noticed that the monster had regained its strength, he immediately alerted his teammates, telling them to watch out. The moment his teammates heard this, they moved away from the monster. After getting up, the Silver Moon Wolf screamed with all its strength to scare the people around it. Gale Wolf's teammates asked him what their next course of action was. Gale Wolf told them not to worry because the monster was in a weakened state. He said he would deal with it himself and instructed Ye Tian to leave the area immediately, as it was no longer safe. Ye Tian smiled when he saw the situation at hand. He believed this was the perfect opportunity for him. Ignoring Gale Wolf's orders, he ran past him and used all his strength to strike the monster on its head. Immediately after hitting it, a status window appeared, notifying him that he had successfully copied the monster's talents. He clenched his fist and jumped onto the monster's back with a menacing look on his face, attacking it mercilessly. Every time he struck, a status window informed him that he had successfully copied the monster's talents. Even after receiving these notifications, he continued to attack the monster endlessly. The moment Ye Tian saw the monster's blood, he smiled maniacally. He raised his hand, ready to strike the monster again, but Gale Wolf stopped him, stating that the creature was already dead. Ye Tian was confused when he heard this but felt happy that he had successfully copied the monster's talents. Gale Wolf ordered his teammates to clean the area, instructing them to pack up the corpses of the Silver Moon Wolf and the deceased father. He told his archer to take care of the little girl. After his team finished their tasks, he bid Ye Tian farewell, expressing that he looked forward to seeing him in his squad once he became a martial warrior. With a bright smile, Ye Tian told Gale Wolf that he would also like that. The scene shifts, and we see Ye Tian in a public bathroom, washing the monster's blood off himself. If his sister saw this, she would be upset and scared. Ye Tian looked in the mirror and noticed how cold his gaze had become. He decided to head home. When he arrived at his house, he found his sister sleeping on the couch. He felt a wave of relief wash over him at the sight. He reflected on how today was the first time he had seen a monster, and it was 100 times more terrifying than what he had heard in stories. He got a blanket to cover her, and when he looked at her face, he realized that he needed to become a martial warrior as soon as possible in order to protect her. He stepped into his room with a rag in his hand, opened his status window, and sat on his bed. He wondered if the talents of a monster could be fused into the body of a human. With determination in his eyes, he looked at the talents of the Silver Moon Wolf. He knew that fusing the talents of a monster could be more painful than his previous fusion, and it might even be life-threatening, but he decided to go through with it anyway because he wanted to become stronger to protect the people who mattered to him. He put the rag in his mouth and prepared to fuse the talent. The moment Ye Tian began to fuse the speed talent, his bones started to break apart. His legs shattered and broke into pieces. The rag fell out of his mouth as he screamed in pain. When Ye Tian looked at his legs, all he could see was blood on the floor. He thought his talent copying had failed. Slowly, he closed his eyes and began to lose consciousness, thinking he was going to die. He could not believe he was leaving his sister in this horrible world. The scene shifts, and we see Ye Tian waking up the next morning. He was surprised to find that he was still alive. He wondered what had happened to him. He looked at his legs and noticed that they were completely healed. Deciding to test them, he stood up but ended up making a clean, fast kick. He was amazed at how light his body had become. When he looked at his status window, he realized that he had successfully copied the speed talent. In a forest near the academy, Ye Tian decided to test his new ability. He ran at incredible speed, making it look like lightning was coming out of his legs. Ye Tian was excited to use his new talent. He could hardly believe that he could view the world in such a different way. After running for a while, he jumped down from a mountain and landed on his feet, convinced that the talent of the Silver Moon Wolf was truly amazing. After testing his new ability to his satisfaction, he sat on a boulder to practice. He reflected on how his speed was now comparable to that of a martial warrior, but his overall power was still severely lacking. He wished he could find a way to increase the speed of his cultivation. While he was cultivating, Zhang Ba came to greet him. He told Ye Tian that he had looked all over the academy for him. When Zhang Ba saw Ye Tian's body, he was surprised and immediately realized that Ye Tian had broken through to the martial apprentice stage. Moving closer, Zhang Ba asked if Ye Tian wanted to get stronger in a much faster way. Ye Tian asked him if he knew of a method that could help him. Zhang Ba asked Ye Tian if he had ever drunk monster blood. Ye Tian thought Zhang Ba was crazy when he heard this and told him he had never consumed any monster blood. With a smug look on his face, Zhang Ba explained that the only reason he had improved faster than anyone else was that he had drunk monster blood. Ye Tian was surprised by this revelation. He could hardly believe that monster blood could enhance one's cultivation speed. He felt regret when he realized he could have obtained a lot of blood from the Silver Moon Wolf. Zhang Ba revealed that he had a way to get their hands on some monster blood and asked Ye Tian if he was interested. With a curious look on his face, Ye Tian urged Zhang Ba to tell him the method. Zhang Ba explained that the higher-ups of the Linhai base had opened up a new wild zone outside the city and had designated it as an exam area for their 5 majorities. The prize for the exam was monster blood. Ye Tian asked Zhang Ba about the level of the new wild zone. Zhang Ba informed him that it was a low-level zone, and most of the monsters had already been cleared out. All that remained were beasts, which were descendants of the monsters. After hearing this, Ye Tian believed the opportunity was worth a try. Zhang Ba then asked Ye Tian if he wanted to join his squad to collect the monster blood together. However, Ye Tian displayed a look of displeasure at Zhang Ba's offer. Surprised by Ye Tian's reaction, Zhang Ba said he had revealed this secret because he considered Ye Tian a good friend. Ye Tian smiled and told Zhang Ba that he would join his squad next time. Immediately after saying this, he decided to leave, leaving Zhang Ba sad. Zhang Ba expressed that he never expected Ye Tian to be so cold-hearted. As he walked away, Ye Tian contemplated how teaming up with others could be dangerous, especially if people discovered his special ability. He assured himself that he would go on this mission alone, determined to obtain the monster blood and break through to the martial warrior realm. A month later, Ye Tian visited his instructor's office. The instructor asked him why he had come to sign up and if he had received the exam invitation. He questioned Ye Tian about whether Ye Tian had leaked information about the exam to him. Ye Tian replied that he had already become a martial apprentice, making him qualified to attend the exam, wearing a villainous smile. The instructor frowned, stating that he wanted the students to live longer, but it seemed they were eager to die. He threw a paper at Ye Tian's face. When Ye Tian picked up the paper, he saw it was a contract titled the Life Responsibility Agreement. The instructor informed him that he had to sign this contract to participate in the exam. Ye Tian fell silent at this. Taking his silence as fear, the instructor shouted at him, telling him to leave if he was afraid to die. The scene shifts to Ye Tian leaving the instructor's office with a smile on his face. He had signed the contract. After he left, the instructor smiled to himself, commenting that this exam was not made for students like them, and that they would regret their decision. The scene shifts again to Ye Tian's sister, who woke up in the morning. She was about to head into Ye Tian's room to wake him up when she noticed a lot of food on the table. Surprised by the variety of dishes Ye Tian had cooked, she wondered what occasion he was celebrating. As she looked at the different dishes, she saw a yellow paper on the table. It contained a message from Ye Tian, stating that his school had an event and he would be back in 3 days. She was surprised and worried about what kind of school event could take 3 days, hoping her brother would be safe. The scene shifts again to an abandoned, ruined area where countless martial artists had gathered at the 5th Academy's section. Ye Tian and Zhang Ba stood together, and Ye Tian was astonished to see so many martial artists in one place. Zhang Ba informed him that everyone there was from the 5 major academies. A young boy standing next to a huge man smiled as he saw the students from the 5th Academy. He remarked that he did not expect trash from a garbage academy to attend the exam. The huge man, the boy's bodyguard, smiled sinisterly and told him that people were allowed to hunt beasts and other humans during the exam. The boy expressed his delight, saying that the weak should feel blessed to be hunted by the strong. Zhang Ba pointed at the rude boy and told Ye Tian that his name was Xia Bi, a genius from the 1st Academy. He added that Xia was the strongest of the younger generation of the Mo family. When Ye Tian heard this, he understood the source of Xia's arrogance. As Ye Tian and Zhang Ba talked, a young boy entered the 1st Academy's camp with his sword. The 1st Academy's students yelled at him, annoyed by his presence. The boy approached Xia and demanded that he stand before him, declaring he wanted to chop Xia into pieces. Xia smiled and asked if the boy wanted to lose to him again. Ye Tian, witnessing the confrontation, inquired about the boy's identity. Zhang Ba told him that the boy's name was Li Yuning and that he was a genius swordsman from the 2nd Academy, who had been defeated by Xia in the past. When Yuning's instructor saw him, he became angry, believing Yuning was another ignorant peasant who did not know his place. He instructed his students to focus on themselves and stop messing around. Ye Tian was infuriated by this, unable to believe his instructor was so foolish. He cheered for Yuning, telling him to do his best. Yuning was taken aback, wondering if Ye Tian was not afraid of Xia. As the fight between Yuning and Xia heated up, an announcer used a microphone to declare that fighting outside the wild zone was prohibited, and anyone who disobeyed would be disqualified from the exam. Yuning, angered by the announcement, told Xia that he would let him live longer but would beat him senseless once they stepped into the wild zone. Xia laughed and called Yuning an undisciplined mutt. Yuning approached Ye Tian and remarked on his courage to cheer him on, asking for his name. Ye Tian introduced himself and mentioned he was from the 5th Academy. He activated his ability, allowing him to see Yuning's talents. He discovered that Yuning had a low-tier cultivation talent and a mid-tier sword talent. Ye Tian was surprised to see such a decent sword talent. He extended his hand to Yuning, encouraging him to ensure he surpassed Xia in the exam. Yuning was happy to hear this, shaking Ye Tian's hand and wishing him well in the exam. As they shook hands, a status window appeared before Ye Tian, notifying him that he had successfully copied Yuning's talent. After a while, an announcer used a microphone to announce that the exam had begun. 2 large men opened the gates of the wild zone, instructing the 1st Academy students to enter first. Immediately, Xia Bi and his fellow students rushed into the wild zone. Zhang Ba was very excited to see the exams had begun and told Ye Tian he needed to find his teammates, promising to meet him in the wild zone later. Ye Tian ed him to be careful. As he stretched his body, Yuning explained that the 1st Academy entered first, followed by the 2nd Academy, to which he belonged, and finally, the 5th Academy would enter last. He expressed that the world was cruel and unfair before bidding Ye Tian farewell. Once alone, Ye Tian ran into a forest. After a while, he stopped when he felt he had escaped the attention of others. He put down his weapons and opened his status window. The system asked him if he would like to fuse the mid-tier sword talent. Ye Tian immediately accepted the offer. As he did, he felt pain all over his body. Having endured this pain before, he slowly grew accustomed to it. He fell to his knees, gritting his teeth, telling himself that he must become stronger. After a while, a bright light shone, and the pain gradually left his body. He stood up and drew his sword to test his new power. As he wielded his sword, he began to slice through the trees around him at an astonishing speed. After testing his new talent to his satisfaction, he decided to head back to the camp. When he arrived, the 5th Academy students were called to enter the wild zone. The moment Ye Tian stepped into the wild zone, a giant snake began to stalk him. After walking for a while, he sensed the presence of a beast behind him. As the beast prepared to devour him, he drew his sword and got into past Ye Tian, attacking head-on. Thanks to his sword talent, he sliced the beast in two. After killing the monster, he stood on its neck and gouged out its eyes. Looking down at the defeated beast, Ye Tian remarked that the creatures in this area were unexpectedly weak. He knew he had to continue killing these weak beasts, as the rules stated that the more beasts you killed, the higher your rank would be. Ye Tian pondered how many points he would need to secure first place. The top prize in the exam would award 3 mid-tier beast blood and 100,000 yuan. Second place would receive 1 mid-tier beast blood and 100,000 yuan, while third place would get 3 low-tier beast blood and 50,000 yuan. All competitors from 4th to 10th place would receive 1 low-tier beast blood. Ye Tian felt disheartened when he realized how far he had to go to achieve first place. Determined, he decided to leave his current hunting area in search of more beasts. While running at full speed, he heard Ye Tian scream for help. He stopped and rushed to check what was happening, only to find Zhang Ba surrounded by several beasts. Trembling in fear, Zhang Ba exclaimed that he did not want to die yet, not having even gotten married. One of the beasts lunged at him, causing Zhang Ba to drop his weapon and flee. Seeing the dire situation, Ye Tian quickly drew his bow and shot an arrow at the beast, hitting it in the stomach. Zhang Ba was shocked by this, and before he knew it, Ye Tian had killed the beast. He jumped down and told Zhang Ba that he intended to kill the remaining beasts to earn the points for himself. Zhang Ba was surprised to see Ye Tian. He told Ye Tian to run away because he was no match for the Fang wolves. Ye Tian activated his speed talent and ran into the middle of the Fang wolves. The wolves decided to attack Ye Tian together. Ye Tian brought out his sword and activated his sword talent. He used a technique called cut to split the beast in two. Zhang Ba could not believe what he was seeing. He could not believe that Ye Tian was so powerful. After slaying the beasts, Ye Tian began to remove their body parts. He asked Zhang Ba if he was allowed to take the fangs of the wolves. Zhang Ba told him to take everything. Ye Tian asked Zhang Ba if he was going to continue hunting in his current state. Zhang Ba told Ye Tian that he had given up and would no longer hunt. He explained that the exam was too dangerous and that he was lucky to be alive. More importantly, all his teammates were heavily injured, so he needed to take them out as soon as possible. He said that his teammates needed to survive. With a look of relief on his face, Ye Tian told Zhang Ba that he made the right decision. After saying this, Ye Tian decided to leave. Zhang Ba stopped him and told him to be careful because there was a pseudo-beast in the area. Ye Tian was surprised to hear this. The strongest beasts were called fierce beasts, and after the fierce beasts, pseudo-beasts were the second strongest, while average beasts were the weakest. Zhang Ba told Ye Tian that the students of the first academy were fighting a spotted snake that was over 10 meters long. This snake was a pseudo-beast. Zhang Ba informed Ye Tian that the pseudo-beast was worth 500 points. Ye Tian was extremely happy to hear this. He grabbed Zhang Ba and asked him for the direction to the beast. Zhang Ba told Ye Tian that the beast was in the southeast part of the wild zone. The southeastern part had an ominous energy around it, but Ye Tian ignored it and rushed toward the beast, believing that he would be in first place if he got 500 points. After running for a while, he immediately stopped when he saw something unusual. He saw the dead bodies of different students on the ground. Thanks to their uniforms, he could tell that the students belonged to the first academy. While looking at the students, he heard an explosion from a nearby location. He could immediately tell that this was the location he was looking for. He ran toward the explosion and was surprised to see how huge the pseudo-beast was. Shii was leading the students of the first academy to attack the giant snake. He told them to use everything in their arsenal to slay the beast because only he could claim the 500 points. All the students followed Shii's orders. Shii's bodyguard also attacked the beast, informing Shii that the beast was running out of stamina and that now would be the perfect time to defeat it. When Shii heard what his bodyguard said, he immediately rushed to attack the giant snake. He jumped up and stabbed the beast in its head, smiling when he heard the beast scream in pain, certain that he could kill it. The beast used its horn to push Shii away, throwing him into a building. While on the ground, Shii smiled because he was now certain that the beast was going to die. He claimed that the 500 points were now his. The beast rolled around in pain until it finally gave up and fell down. Ye Tian was annoyed to see this. He could not believe that the beast had actually been killed. He regretted arriving late. Shii moved the boulders around him and went to meet his classmates. His bodyguard and classmates congratulated him for killing the snake. Shi laughed, saying that he would be getting first place just as he deserved. Immediately after Shi said this, the snake opened its eyes and got up. Its body became purple, and it released a frightening roar, beating up all the students that were close to it. When Shi saw how the snake behaved, he immediately knew that the beast had entered its blood-burst mode. After pushing away the students around it, the beast ran away. Shi told the beaten students to get up and chase after the beast. He informed them that the beast was no longer a pseudo-beast, it was now a full-fledged monster. The students of the First Academy were terrified to hear this and asked Shi if it was smart for them to be chasing after a monster. Shi told the students that they had to chase the monster because it was now worth 1,000 points. The students were shocked to hear this and immediately ran after the monster, not wanting anyone to steal the opportunity from them. Shi knew that the attacks and beatings the monster had received from the students of his academy had made the monster weak and vulnerable. He was certain that he and his classmates had to reach the monster first, otherwise, all their efforts would be in vain. Ye Tian was very happy with the current situation. He could not believe that the monster was still alive and was now worth 1,000 points. Fortunately for him, he had a speed talent that made him faster than anyone else. He got into pos Ye Tian and activated his talent's maximum power. Immediately, he ran at an insane speed. After running for a while, he began to slow down when he realized that he was ahead of the First Academy students. He saw a trail of purple blood on the floor, and after following the trail, Ye Tian arrived at an abandoned store. He smiled when he realized that he was the first person to arrive there and became certain that he would be getting the 1,000 points. When Ye Tian stepped into the store, the first thing he noticed was that the stench of the snake was very strong, confirming that the snake had been there. While looking around, he saw something shocking. The snake was taking drops of a strange liquid. He did not know what kind of liquid this was, but he was certain it was not normal. He brought out his sword and decided to worry about the liquid after he had killed the monster and obtained his 1,000 points. He rushed to attack the monster while it was distracted. Unfortunately for him, the monster noticed his presence and immediately closed the gap between itself and Ye Tian. Ye Tian was surprised by how fast the monster was. The monster used its hand to attack Ye Tian. Ye Tian was able to avoid the attack, but his sword fell from his hand. While on the ground, Ye Tian brought out his bow and 2 arrows, shooting them at the monster. The arrows hit the monster in its eyes, blinding it. After landing on the ground, Ye Tian picked up his sword and rushed to attack the monster. He jumped onto the monster's hand and stabbed it. The monster screamed in pain as it was stabbed. Ye Tian pushed his sword into the monster's skin. Due to the fact that the snake's skin was very strong, Ye Tian's hands and sword were shaking. Ye Tian screamed to boost his strength and began to cut the monster's hand in 2. He made countless cuts in the monster's body until it lost consciousness. After wriggling for a while, the monster lost its strength and died. Ye Tian was relieved to see this. He knew that he would not have been able to kill the monster if the students of the First Academy had not weakened it. He looked around and noticed that the mysterious liquid the snake had been drinking was still dripping. He decided to collect the liquid for himself because if it was something a monster sought, it must be a treasure. He brought out a bottle to collect some of the liquid, stepped on the monster's head, and removed its eyeball to serve as proof of the kill. The blood from the heart of a monster is extremely valuable, so Ye Tian cut the heart and drained some of the monster's blood. After acquiring the blood he wanted and obtaining some of the mysterious liquid, he decided to cut the stone that was producing the liquid because he did not know what it was and he did not want Shi to acquire it. After calculating the amount of points he had acquired, Ye Tian was certain that he would be in first place in the exam. After packing all his items, he decided to leave this place. After Ye Tian left, Shi and the students of the First Academy arrived at the abandoned mall. Unfortunately for them, the monster was already dead. When the students looked around, they noticed that the blood from the heart of the monster had already been taken. Shi's bodyguard revealed to Shi that everything valuable in the monster's body had been taken and only the corpse was left. With a look of anger on his face, Shi said that he would destroy the person who stole his 1,000 points from him. The scene shifts to Ye Tian at the top of the abandoned mall, where he was waiting for the students of the First Academy to leave. When the students of the academy came out, Shi's bodyguard asked him what he was going to do about the person who stole his points. Shi told his bodyguard to thoroughly search every single person he saw, insisting they would definitely find the person who did this to him. After hearing what Shi said, Ye Tian decided that he had to stay hidden for a while. Once the students of the first academy left, Ye Tian activated his speed talent and ran away from the mall. While running, Ye Tian realized that the students of the first academy would eventually find out that he was the one who killed the monster, as everyone would know his name when he submitted the monster parts to the exam committee. He decided to focus on cultivating and improving his strength. After running for a while, he found a spot that was secluded from the hunting area and decided to cultivate. There, after settling down, Ye Tian brought out the blood of the monster. He wondered how powerful he would become after drinking the monster's blood. When he drank it, he could not believe how disgusting it tasted, but he forced himself to finish the blood because he wanted to become strong enough to protect his sister. The scene shifts to Yu in class, wondering how her brother is doing. The scene shifts back to Ye Tian, and we see him cultivating. Ye Tian was surprised by how the monster's blood increased his cultivation speed by 4 times. After seeing how fast he was cultivating, Ye Tian understood why Qin Dong and the other students were improving at such a fast rate. He realized that one needed resources apart from talent when cultivating. Thanks to acquiring a lot of resources, he decided to cultivate to the best of his abilities with the 2.5 days he had left. 3 days later, the students gathered around to submit the parts of the beasts they had hunted. Some students were able to acquire 23 points, while others did not acquire any points at all. Yunning arrived at the location with a green bag that contained a lot of beast body parts. He told the teacher to calculate his points. The teacher informed Yunning that he had acquired 195 points. The other students were amazed when they heard this. Immediately, Yunning submitted his beast parts. Shiai arrived with his bodyguard and 2 girls by his side. He said that people should not be impressed with just 195 points. He told Yunning that he had overestimated him and that he could not challenge him when he did not even have 200 points. Yunning was annoyed to hear this. Shiai walked up to the teacher and poured the materials he had acquired onto her table. He asked the teacher to calculate the points for him. The teacher was very surprised to see the amount of materials Shiai had acquired. She said that Shiai had 427 points. The other students were shocked to hear this. They could not believe it was possible for Sam Ye Tian to get 427 points. Yunning told Shiai that he must have stolen points from other people. Shiai did not deny this claim. He told Yunning that he stole from those people with his abilities. When Yunning heard this, he called Shiai a scum. The 2 girls next to Shiai congratulated him on acquiring 427 points, telling him that he would definitely be in first place. Shiai told them that he could not be first place because first place would have over 1,000 points. The students were shocked when they heard this. They did not believe it was possible for Sam Ye Tian to acquire over 1,000 points. Yuning's instructor walked up to the exam attendant and told her that all the students who were still alive were already out of the wild zone. The attendant accepted this fact, stating that anyone who had not come out of the wild zone was probably already dead. With a sinister smile on his face, Ye Tian's instructor told the attendant that Shiai was in first place in this exam. Immediately after he said this, the students noticed that one more student was returning from the wild zone. They informed Yuning's instructor, who was shocked to hear this. Unsurprisingly, the student was Ye Tian. As soon as he arrived, Ye Tian submitted all the materials he had acquired. The exam attendant was surprised to see the eyeball of a monster. She told Ye Tian that he had acquired 1,163 points and congratulated him on achieving first pass. Ye Tian. The committee gave him 3 monster blood vials and 100,000 yuan in cash as his reward. Zhang Ba began to cheer for Ye Tian when he saw him in first place. Yunning was surprised to see this and wondered how Ye Tian was able to reach first place. Shiai was happy to see the thief who stole his prize from him and ordered his bodyguard to run a background check on Ye Tian to find out everything about him. Zhang Ba told his friends that Ye Tian had proved that the 5th Academy was one of the best by taking first place. The other students of the academy were surprised that Ye Tian was actually in first place and wondered how he was able to achieve such a feat. Zhang Ba saw his instructor's expression and asked him why he did not look happy. He told the instructor that Ye Tian had brought glory to their academy. The instructor called Zhang Ba an ignorant brat when he heard this, with a villainous smile on his face. He told Zhang Ba that Ye Tian had angered and offended the powerful Emo family. He revealed to Zhang Ba that Ye Tian would soon be dead. Zhang Ba became worried when he heard what the instructor said. He wondered about what was going to happen to Ye Tian. After all the winners had received their awards, the top 3 participants were asked to take a picture together. Shabat told Ye Tian that he had a lot of courage to steal his prey. Ye Tian smiled and ignored him. Yunning told Sha not to forget what he told him earlier. Sha asked Yunning to remind him of what he said. Yunning reminded Sha that Ye Tian, like him, had stolen the points using his own skill. Sha laughed when he heard this and asked Yunning who he thought was stronger, between him and Ye Tian. Ye Tian walked up to Shiai and told him they needed to fight to decide who was stronger. Shiai was surprised to be challenged, but he found it interesting. Ye Tian stood up to Shiai because he knew that once people like Shiai target others, they never let them go. He decided he had to become much stronger so that Sha wouldn't dream of challenging him. After the practical exam was over, the students were sent home. When Ye Tian arrived at his house, Yu ran into his arms. She told him she had missed him and asked why the school trip had taken so long. She checked his entire body to see if he had sustained any injuries. Ye Tian smiled and told her he was fine, and that he had brought her some gifts. Ye Tian showed her the money and prizes he had received. Wei was very excited to see the money and told Ye Tian that he finally had enough money to get married. Ye Tian told her to stop saying nonsense, the money was for her to Ye Tian and their daily expenses. Wei was very happy to hear this, believing they could now eat meat every day. She picked up a bottle containing mysterious liquid and asked Ye Tian what it was. Ye Tian said he didn't know but had bought a book called The Illustrated Book of Treasures to find out. Wei was curious and moved near her brother to read the book with him. After scanning the book, Ye Tian finally found the name of the stone. It was called the Terra Core Elixir. The liquid from the Terra Core Elixir could improve the cultivation talent of an individual upon consumption, but it could only improve the talents of those with mid-tier cultivation and below. However, the stone itself could be used to increase high cultivation talents and above. Ye Tian realized that the giant snake had regained some of its strength thanks to the elixir, and he couldn't believe he had found such an amazing item. Wei gave her brother the elixir after understanding its value, telling him it would be more useful to him. Ye Tian told his sister that the elixir wasn't useful to him because he already had mid-tier cultivation talent. With a smile, he told his sister she would be the one to drink the elixir. Wei was shocked to hear this and couldn't believe her brother wanted to give it to her. She reminded him that she hadn't yet awakened her talent and that the elixir would be wasted on her. While staring at the elixir, Wei looked at her status window, which showed she had low cultivation talent and an unawakened frost talent of novice tier. Wei was certain the Terra Core Elixir would improve her cultivation talent, but he didn't know how much. While Wei was thinking, Wei advised her brother to sell the elixir, saying they would get a lot of money for it because it was such an amazing item. Wei told his sister that the Terra Core Elixir came from the Terra Moral Stone, which he had already destroyed. Wei revealed that any buyer would ask for the Terra Moral Stone as well, and wouldn't believe him if he said he had destroyed it. Wei told his sister that selling the elixir would cause unwanted problems for them. With a smile, Wei told her the buyers would try to kill him to get the stone. Wei was sad to hear this and said her brother had messed up by destroying the stone. Ye Tian took the elixir from his sister and told her it would be a waste if she didn't drink it. Wei grabbed his sister's mouth and poured the elixir down her throat. Wei told her brother that he was squeezing her mouth too hard. After feeding her the elixir, Ye Tian asked her how she felt. She told her brother she felt warm and comfortable. Wei was surprised to hear this. When he looked at his sister's status window, her cultivation talent was still the same. Wei was shocked and wondered if the book had described the elixir incorrectly. Wei sat in a chair and told her brother that she felt sleepy and would make dinner after a nap. Wei told his sister to enjoy her nap. Ye Tian did not understand what was going on but decided to check on his sister later, believing the elixir hadn't taken effect yet. 1 hour later, Wei was cultivating in the house when he felt a powerful aura. When he turned around and looked at his sister's status window, he was surprised to see her cultivation talent had increased to mid-tier. He couldn't believe her talent had improved by 2 tiers. Now that his sister had a mid-tier cultivation and frost talent, Ye Tian was certain she would become a powerful martial warrior in the future. Wei covered his sister with a cloth, picked up the blood of a monster, and vowed to defeat Shiai. Wei went into his room, drank the monster's blood, and was disgusted by its taste, quickly eating some peanuts to wash it down. Wei was excited to see how strong he would become after cultivating, so he sat in a lotus pose Ye Tian and began cultivating immediately. He noticed that his cultivation speed had increased 8-fold, which shocked him. He couldn't believe a mid-rank monster would have such an effect on his body. Ye Tian was certain he could become a martial warrior within a month if he had enough blood. Unfortunately, Ye Tian only had 2 bottles of blood left. 10 days later, we see Ye cultivating at the academy. Zhang Ba suddenly ran to meet him. Ye Tian did not understand why Zhang Ba was in such a hurry and asked him what happened. Out of breath, Zhang Ba mentioned Xiai's name. Ye stood up when he heard Xiai's name, assuming he was at the academy. Zhang Ba told Ye Tian that Xiai had gone into seclusion to break through to the martial warrior realm and that Xiai would come for revenge after succeeding. After hearing this, Ye Tian calmly sat down. Zhang Ba was annoyed, unable to believe that Ye was not panicking. However, Ye was no longer concerned since Xiai was not at the academy. Ye realized that Xiai, like him, had mid-tier talent and could become a martial warrior in a month. Zhang Ba warned Ye that Xiai would easily kill him if he became a martial warrior. Ye Tian reassured Zhang Ba not to worry, telling him he was also training. Zhang Ba did not understand and reminded Ye that Xiai was from a powerful family with access to numerous resources. Zhang Ba told Ye that he had nothing left but his 3 bottles of monster blood. Ye told Zhang Ba that he had already used the monster blood, shocking Zhang Ba, who then realized his friend was going to die. He told Ye Tian that he would take care of his sister once he was gone. Ye Tian's only remaining resources were the viper's blood and its heart's blood, which he believed would allow him to reach the advanced martial apprentice rank, only 1 rank below the martial warrior realm. However, with his current resources, Ye Tian could not enter the martial warrior realm. Fortunately, Ye Tian's speed talent and sword talent would give him enough strength to fight a full-fledged martial warrior. The scene shifts to the Emo family estate, where we see a man guarding a vault. As the man stood in front of the vault, it began to crack. When the vault finally broke, Ye Tian stepped out. It was Xiai. Xiai's guard greeted him and congratulated him on becoming a martial warrior, acknowledging the unique aura surrounding his body. Xiai glared at his bodyguard. After stepping out of the vault, Xiai went to his room, where 2 maids came to clothe him. While Xiai was getting dressed, his father and a guard entered the room. Xiai was surprised to see his father. Xiai's father was happy to see his son had entered the martial warrior realm. His father's name was Amoan, an elite martial warrior in the M stage and one of the 10 elders of the Presbyterian Church. Amoan grabbed his son's shoulder and congratulated him on his success. Xiai smiled when he saw the look on his father's face and told him he would never bring shame to their family. Amoan told Xiai that the great ancestor wanted to reward him for his success. Xiai knelt and thanked his father for his teachings and support. Amoan laughed and asked his son to stand. He then asked the guard to check the food and drinks, but before the guard could move, Amoan said he would go himself. Amoan told Xiai he had prepared his favorite dishes and asked him to eat when he was free. Xiai thanked his father for his kindness. After his father left, Xiai asked his bodyguard if he had done what he was asked. With a villainous smile, the bodyguard informed Xiai that Ye Tian was a boy without parents or backings, and they could deal with him however they liked. Xiai was surprised to learn that Ye Tian had no powerful backings, as he had assumed otherwise. Xiai instructed his bodyguard to send Ye Tian to kill Ye Tian. The bodyguard was shocked and reminded Xiai that the base was different from the wild zones. He explained that their family could not kill Ye Tian carelessly due to the aftermath. Xiai sat in a chair as a maid poured him a drink. He told his bodyguard they didn't need to use the family's name to kill Ye Tian. With a smile, Xiai instructed his bodyguard to hire a shadow assassin, ensuring that no one would trace the attack back to them. The bodyguard was once again shocked and told Xiai it would cost 1,000,000 yuan to hire a shadow assassin, questioning if Ye Tian was worth that much. Xiai was disappointed in his bodyguard, realizing he still had a peasant's mentality. Xiai explained that there were only a few powerful families in Linhai base, and the other citizens were like subjects of enslavement. He asked his bodyguard if he knew why there were no other powerful people in the base. With a villainous smile, Xiai explained that powerful families always killed any prodigy that appeared among the peasants. As soon as he said this, Xiai broke his glass cup. The bodyguard was shocked by this revelation and realized that the Fifth Academy had been created to kill any peasant who tried to grow strong. With a creepy smile, Xiai told his bodyguard that this was simply how the world worked, the strong must prey on the weak. The scene shifts, and we see Ye Tian practicing his sword arts at the academy. Ye Tian used his sword to crush a boulder. After practicing for a while, Ye Tian decided to stop training, realizing that it was about to rain. He decided to head home. As Ye Tian was walking through the streets, he noticed a status window on a pole. Ye Tian did not understand what was going on, as he was certain no one was there. When he looked at the status window, he saw that the person's name was Li Yuan. Li Yuan had a low-tier cultivation talent and a novice-tier shadow talent. While Ye Tian was looking at the status window, something rushed toward him. As it got closer, Ye Tian felt its presence. He quickly drew his sword and used it to block a man's attack. Ye Tian moved back to create some distance between himself and the man. He asked the man for his identity. With a smile, the man told Ye Tian that he was the one who would kill him. Ye Tian was surprised to see the assassin and quickly realized that Xia was the one who had sent him. Ye Tian couldn't understand why Xia would send an assassin, given that he was already a martial warrior. He couldn't comprehend why Xia would use such an underhanded method. While Ye Tian was deep in thought, Li Yuan appeared behind him and tried to attack. Ye Tian quickly sensed Li Yuan's presence and blocked the attack with his sword. As soon as he blocked it, Li Yuan disappeared into thin air. Ye Tian was shocked, realizing that the shadow talent allowed its user to become invisible. As he looked up, Li Yuan reappeared behind him and tried to slice Ye Tian's neck with his sword. Fortunately, Ye Tian was quick enough to react and dodge the attack by jumping onto a nearby building. Li Yuan was frustrated, unable to understand how a martial apprentice could be so fast. Ye Tian decided to counterattack. He leapt from the building and rushed toward Li Yuan, swinging his sword. But as soon as he swung, Li Yuan used his shadow talent to turn invisible again, and Ye Tian's attack hit a building instead of him. Li Yuan's talent would be dangerous against an ordinary opponent, but Ye Tian was no ordinary person. He could see Li Yuan's status window floating in the air. Ye Tian slashed in the air after pinpointing Li Yuan's location, and the attack hit Li Yuan squarely in the chest. Li Yuan spat out blood and fell to the ground, stunned. Li Yuan couldn't understand how this had happened. He was certain that even an elite martial warrior couldn't see through his talent. He asked Ye Tian how he had found him. Ye Tian approached Li Yuan and demanded to know who had sent him. Li Yuan, picking up his sword, said he would only reveal the truth after Ye Tian was dead. Immediately, Li Yuan lunged at Ye Tian with a technique called Shadow Blade. Ye Tian dodged by jumping, and when he landed, he quickly rushed toward Li Yuan, stabbing him from behind. With a terrifying look in his eyes, Ye Tian demanded to know the name of the person who had hired him. Li Yuan laughed, acknowledging Ye Tian as the strongest martial apprentice he had ever faced. He then revealed that it was indeed Xia who had sent him. With that, Li Yuan collapsed and died. Annoyed at hearing Xia's name, Ye Tian bent down and placed his hand on Li Yuan's body. As soon as he did, a status window appeared, informing him that he had successfully copied the shadow talent. With a serious expression, Ye Tian stated that he now possessed the shadow talent. In the next scene, we see Ye Tian burying Li Yuan's body. After the burial, Ye Tian knelt down. He murmured that a human should not feel content with being blown around by the wind and rain. He declared that a human should not be treated like a fallen leaf. As the heavy rain poured down, Ye Tian grabbed a leaf and vowed to live like a man in this world. He assured himself that he would become the wind and rain, but he would never be a fallen leaf. The scene shifts, and we see Ye Tian taking a hot shower at home. Afterward, he put on some clothes and sat on his couch. Ye Tian then looked through the belongings he had acquired from Li Yuan. He confirmed that Li Yuan's blades were primordial weapons. Ye Tian decided to keep them, as his own sword had been ruined in the fight. Among Li Yuan's belongings, Ye Tian found some cards. The gold cards were worth 1,000,000 yuan, and the silver cards were worth 100,000 yuan. After counting the cards, Ye Tian realized he had obtained 3.5 million yuan. He knew this was the money Xia had paid for his assassination, but he decided to enjoy it guilt-free. Ye Tian also discovered a book among Li Yuan's possessions. Upon opening it, he realized it was a skill book containing a technique called Shadow Blade. This was a bronze rank blade skill. In this world, skills were ranked from iron, bronze, and silver to gold, with gold being the highest. Ye Tian was excited to find this blade skill, as it was something he had lacked. Blade skills allowed one to fully unleash their blade talent. Ye Tian hurried to his room, eager to start learning the skill. As he sat on his bed, lightning struck outside. Instantly, Ye Tian sensed that something was wrong. He realized his sister had not yet returned from school. Knowing that Xia was aware of everything about him, Ye Tian grew worried. He knew his sister was in danger of being assassinated. Without hesitation, Ye Tian opened his window and jumped outside. He began running, leaping across buildings at full speed, praying that his sister was safe. After running for a while, Ye Tian landed in an alley near Yu's school. He stepped out and looked around. Ye Tian knew Yu attended an ordinary school, and he believed that people with talent wouldn't come to harm a student. Still, he wasn't sure if Xia would care about that. While Ye Tian was deep in thought, Ye Tian pointed an umbrella at his back and told him not to move. In an instant, Ye Tian used his speed to get behind the person. He asked them not to move, but then the person took off their raincoat. It was his sister, Yu, joking with him. Ye Tian was surprised and asked why she was late. Yu explained that she was on upkeep duty today and had been cleaning the classrooms. Noticing her brother's strange appearance, Yu asked why he had come outside without an umbrella or shoes. Ye Tian told her he had forgotten them because he was in a rush. As the siblings walked home, Yu asked her brother how he had appeared behind her so quickly. As they continued walking, Ye Tian watched them from a car. The observer turned out to be Xia, annoyed to see that Ye Tian was still alive. Ye Tian and Yu stopped to buy sausages on their way home. While walking, Yu asked her brother what he wanted to eat. Ye Tian asked Yu to make her signature boiled meat slices. On the way home, Ye Tian noticed that a car was following them. He became suspicious, realizing that they were being tailed. Later, at home, Ye Tian stood on the balcony, watching the car parked next to their house. He became even more suspicious but decided to help his sister set the dinner table. In the next scene, Yu is in class, standing up to solve a question given by her teacher. Opposite Yu's school, a man stands on top of a building. It's Ye Tian. He looked down and noticed that the car was still in the area. Ye Tian was irritated, unable to believe that Ye Tian had been following his sister for 3 days. He couldn't fathom why anyone would want to harm her and believed Xia had crossed the line. As Ye Tian observed the surroundings, the car drove away from the area. He was shocked and immediately jumped down from the building, running after the car. After a long drive, the car arrived at an unfinished building. Ye Tian stood on a long pole when he reached the area, watching as a man got out of the car and entered the building. Ye Tian realized that this was the place Xia was in. Eager to see Xia, he activated his shadow talent and headed into the building. Inside, he saw a man being beaten by 2 others while on the floor. The man begged Xia for forgiveness, saying he had no money and promised to pay once he had enough. He pleaded with Xia to let him go. Xia sat on some iron rods, observing the scene. He told the man that his debt would double if he didn't pay by tomorrow, reminding him that money wasn't easy to come by. The man got on his knees, begging Xia again, saying that his interest rates were too high and that he had elderly parents and young children to care for. As the man continued pleading, Xia's bodyguard entered the building. Xia asked his bodyguard if there had been any news from Yetian. While Xia was questioning his bodyguard, Ye Tian had already entered the building, hiding in a dark corner. The bodyguard informed Xia that he had not heard from the shadow assassin and would try to contact Yetian through other means. Upon hearing this, Ye Tian became certain that Xia had sent Yetian after him. Xia walked over to the man who was begging and, addressing his bodyguard, remarked that people always tried to scam descendants of rich families like himself. He then began kicking the man repeatedly. Xia's bodyguard was horrified by his young master's actions. He assured Xia that the man was not trying to scam him and that he had always served him faithfully. After Xia finished assaulting the man, one of his henchmen checked the man's Kong Ye Tian and informed Xia that he was dead. Xia instructed the men to dispose of the body and then asked his bodyguard if he knew how to handle Tian's sister. The bodyguard assured him that he would take care of Yu personally and that nothing would go wrong. Hearing this, Xia smiled, gathered energy in his hand, and suddenly attacked his bodyguard. The bodyguard spat blood and fell to the ground, asking his young master why he had hurt him. Smiling, Xia told him that he was suffering the consequences of failing the first job. As Xia spoke, Ye Tian drew his weapon and leapt from his hiding spot. Xia quickly sensed Ye Tian's presence, but it was too late. Ye Tian killed him before he could react. Ye Tian smiled as he cut Xia's body, and the men in the room were stunned, unable to believe that their young master was dead. Xia's bodyguard was shocked to see that Ye Tian had killed Xia using a shadow talent. He had assumed only one person had such a talent, Yetian. To his surprise, it was Ye Tian who stepped out of the shadows. The bodyguard couldn't understand what was happening and couldn't believe that Ye Tian possessed the shadow talent. The two henchmen ran away in fear. The bodyguard told Ye Tian that he had already done his research and knew that Ye Tian supposedly had a weak tier talent. He asked how Ye Tian had managed to kill a martial warrior like Xia and what had happened to Liuyan. Ye Tian let out a deep sigh before rushing toward the bodyguard to attack. As Ye Tian closed in, the bodyguard confidently told him that he couldn't kill him, but unfortunately for him, that wasn't true. Ye Tian swiftly cut the bodyguard down. After killing him, Ye Tian pulled out a handkerchief and used it to clean his blade. He threw the handkerchief to the ground, where the word, shadow, was embroidered. Ye Tian then sheathed his weapon, put on his hoodie, and looked at Xia's dead body, telling him that he had messed with the wrong person. After saying this, Ye Tian left the building. An hour later, cars arrived at the building. Inside, a man stared at his son's corpse, unable to believe what he was seeing. He asked his men who had killed his son. One of his henchmen found Ye Tian's handkerchief and handed it to him, speculating that Xia had been killed by a shadow assassin. The man, was furious. He couldn't believe that Ye Tian had sent a shadow assassin to kill his son. As mourned, an old man entered the building. The others referred to him as Old Mo. This man was Mo Zhongqing, the great elder of the wealthy Mo family of the Linhai base. He was also the only great martial warrior in the Mo family. Was shocked to see Zhongqing and knelt before him, telling him that the prodigy of the Mo family, Xia, was dead. Zhongqing asked to stand and speak. Explained that Xia had just become a martial warrior and had recently celebrated this achievement. He told Zhongqing that Xia had the potential to become a great warrior and revitalize their family. Crying, told him that his son had met a miserable end. Zhongqing acknowledged Xia's genius and knew he was the Mo family's hope. He remarked that their family's boss Ye Tian would have strengthened with another great martial warrior. Then presented the handkerchief to Zhongqing, asking him to avenge his son. Zhongqing examined the handkerchief and believed that Xia had been killed by a shadow assassin. As he thought about it, Zhongqing realized something. He stepped outside and was certain that one of the families with a grudge against the Mo family had hired the assassin. When Zhongqing held the handkerchief up to the moonlight, he noticed a small logo next to the shadow symbol and believed that the Iron Fang base was involved. The scene shifted to Ye Tian, who was talking to Zhang Ba. Zhang Ba told Ye Tian that the Iron Fang base was much stronger than the Linhai base and that Zhongqing suspected some families from Linhai were secretly colluding with Iron Fang. Zhang Ba also revealed to Ye Tian that the Iron Fang base was trying to eliminate the younger generations of elites to take over the Linhai base. He informed Ye Tian that Xia had been killed after breaking through to the martial warrior realm and that his head had been severed. Ye Tian was relieved that no one suspected him. Zhang Ba told Ye Tian he was lucky since Xia would have likely tried to kill him. After the conversation, Ye Tian reflected on how his actions had saved him. He had purposely left the handkerchief to mislead the Mo family. However, he was surprised to learn that Zhongqing had found the Iron Fang symbol on the handkerchief. Ye Tian believed that Zhongqing would use the handkerchief to stir up conflict between the two bases. And that's the end of this part. If you guys want next part, let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like and smash that subscribe button for more recaps. See you next time.